Okay, awesome. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Can you believe it's April 19? April 19, halfway through the month of the second quarter of 2024. So I am definitely honored and privileged to have this amazing professional in front of me, Teresa Workman, who's been in the industry for many, many, many years. We're going to dive deep into her journey and ultimately her lifestyle and why she got into real estate. So welcome, Teresa.
Good morning, everybody. How are you guys doing out there?
Awesome, awesome. So let's dive deep. Tell us a little bit of you. Who's Teresa Workman?
So I grew up in Montana. I moved to California for a job in used aircraft many years ago in aerospace. A lot of you probably know what that is. I ended up staying in aerospace for quite a while, and then I got laid off and started searching for a career, and I ended up owning a day spa of all things. And
Day spa, huh?
I did that for probably about 15 years. And I always wanted to be a real estate agent. I was always interested in learning about all the ins and outs of buying a house, selling houses. I would go to open houses. And I met someone through my day spa actually who inspired me to get my license back in 2007. So I've been licensed as a salesperson since 2007. I started out a small boutique firm in Redondo Beach called Scott Anastasi Realty. I'm sure some of you know the name. He's a local, and his father and uncle were the builders that started the Two on the Lots in North Redondo back in the 70s.
Wow.
So they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, amazing. So you didn't start real estate in Montana. It was when you were here in California.
No, yeah, correct.
Okay, awesome. So 2007, that's when you started real estate.
Yeah, so when I got my license, I was very excited. And then all of a sudden, the market took a hit because of many reasons. But I'm sure if any of you have been in the industry long enough, went through the downturn in 08, 09, 010, 11.
Yes.
And I didn't sell a house. I got my license in August of 2007, and my first house that I sold was in May of 2008. So it took quite a while for me to sell a house. I was still working at the day spa. And so that kept the money coming in because we all need something unless we have
So what
other
you're telling me,
factors.
Teresa, you didn't go into real estate full time.
In the beginning, no, I did not. I was
Okay.
part-time. For me, was probably about 40 hours a week part-time.
Gotcha.
So I was working about 70 hours a week, and I was a single mom at the time. I'd gone through a divorce, and so I had somebody that came and watched my daughter, and I was, working all hours. Back in those days, I would get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to talk to people in other countries if needed. So yeah, I was definitely part-time, but eventually, about a year in, I decided to close my day spa and store and just do real estate full-time. And when I did that, I actually ended up working part-time for 2 doctors and also just doing facials and massages just to keep the money coming in until I could commit full-time financially to being a real estate agent.
Wow, amazing. And what was your first experience? Did you work with the buyer first, the seller first?
So my first experience, I actually sold a house in North Redondo on 1756 Reed Street. And that house was on the market for 180 days.
Okay.
And it was a rough go. My first deal, we found mold in the garage. The buyers were FHA buyers. So it was a lot of trying to resolve issues, and there were a lot of egos involved, and I was a young agent and inexperienced. And I learned a lot from that transaction, mostly to keep my ego out of it and just try and focus on the problems and resolve them.
Yeah. Well, the complexity, right, that we deal with the transaction, we always want our transactions to be as smooth as possible, right? But you're gonna have those elements that sometimes you're gonna be hitting walls. You're gonna have some challenges. The deal is going sideways. And sometimes the deals just fall apart, right? And it's our
Yes.
job as real estate professionals, right? To have that stickiness on the transaction. This is why we try to push very hard to navigate this, right? To ultimately get to the finish line of closing the deal. Yeah.
And I
So-
think one of the things that is really difficult for realtors, and myself included, you know, you don't really get the pat on the back until the payday. And a lot of realtors don't work just for the money. I think all of us have goals and things that we want to accomplish financially, but most of the realtors I know really are invested in their clients' happiness.
Yeah.
And so throughout the transaction, it can be very difficult and very stressful because of those factors that, I'm a people pleaser. So when people aren't happy, it causes me anxiety.
Yeah, okay. And that was, so let's go into a little bit more than how the momentum of your real estate started. Did you started doing something different? Were you heavily involved in open houses, prospecting? Tell us a little bit of how that started building that muscle for you and you started seeing more and more production.
So when I first was in real estate, 07, 08, 09, honestly, I had a great success with short sales. And I got a lot of training in the short sale arena. I was a Wells Fargo and Bank of America preferred short sale agent. I had to go through all these trainings, but what ended up happening is a lot of agents didn't know how to do short sales. So they would refer them to me for the 25% referral fee,
Yeah.
whatnot. But that segued into other listings. I think one of the most challenging sales I ever had, I was the listing agent, was a property in San Pedro. And it was on the market for 324 days, fell out of escrow many times. It was a Bank of America short sale,
How many days?
324.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that was my longest listing. But I will say that it taught me a lot. Again, I learned a lot about the short sale system. And then what comes from those listings, especially if you can do it with grace and respect for the owners that are losing their home, is they end up referring you their friends.
Right.
And so that $300,000 house in San Pedro turned into two referrals in South Redondo, way well over $1 million. One was $1.8 million and the other was $1.3 million. So that really propelled me. I would say just the education and the knowledge. Now, I will say that doing foreclosures, a lot of people get really excited about, working with the banks. I went down that path and I stopped about midway through because I realized it just wasn't for me. And it's a different beast.
100%. Yeah. I mean, how did you have the patience to be in such a long agreement? The communication with the seller saying, rest assured, we're going to get through this.
Well, there's a lot of frustration and there has to be trust. And the way that I communicate, I'm very transparent. And I mean, I've had people throw plates at me. I've had
Really?
people screaming at each other, husbands, wives, all kinds of dynamics in those situations because people are losing their homes. So I just try to be very respectful of their situation. And obviously I'm kind of stubborn, so I don't like to lose. And to me, if I would have given up on somebody in a short sale situation, their house gets foreclosed on. So I was very tenacious. The lenders aren't very happy, and the asset managers are completely overworked and underpaid. So it's definitely something you have to sink your teeth in and really go for it and not give up, because some of the asset managers are in like Florida, which I would have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and make sure that I was the first call they got because they don't answer their phone after 8:30.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Interesting. Cool. Well, let's pivot a little bit out of the short sales because we don't see short sales and they're kind of far and few. So tell us a little bit of, are you more focused on sellers, buyers, investors? What
looking
does
at
that
the
look like?
track record, honestly, in the beginning, it was a mix.
Okay.
And I did have some traction because I did own a store in the Revere Village. I knew some people. And then, I was lucky enough to go through some training. And back in those days, I always tell people, even when I'm fumbling, I go back to the basics, you know.
Yeah.
And there's going to be hiccups there, but so mostly I'm a listing agent now. It's probably about 80-20. And that's not by design. It just kind of happened that way because
Yeah.
buyers turn into sellers.
100%.
And I always have to think about why I'm in the industry, because sometimes it's very frustrating and, you know, it can be challenging. And a lot of us lose a lot of sleep over the big deals or even the little deals. So I always go back to my why. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose? And, you know, everyone has a different why. It could be you have kids. It could be you want to take traveling. For me, it was my daughter. And so I started farming. And that kind of segues into being a listing agent, which I don't really tout myself as that, but I started farming South Redondo and South Torrance because that's where my daughter was in school, and that's where I did a lot of my charity stuff. And so I would say that if you're a new agent, start with the basics, get your CRM together. And I know Keller Williams has a great portal with Command. And it's very tedious work depending on how many people you have that are contacts, but to get a really solid, you know, base. I went through the Brian Buffini training. I went through Tom Ferry training. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with them, but they're pretty high level coaching programs.
Sure.
They're not for everyone. They weren't for me because back in those days I was not coachable.
Interesting. Okay.
I have ADHD and I just have a hard time sitting still and listening and the follow through. But back to I always say go back to the basics, and I have to force myself to sit down and go through my contact management and start reaching out. And I guess that's part of your farm too. So farming is important, and consistency, even if it's only 25 people a month, just be consistent with those 25. And you can invest more money and make your farm bigger when you have the money.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. And this goes into my next question, which you touched a little bit, is what would you tell yourself now that you have all these years of experience, knowledge, and understanding the ins and outs of real estate for the audience that are either newly licensed, getting in the trenches of real estate, or someone that wants to get momentum into their business? What would you say to that person?
I would say find a mentor and join a team. I did not do that. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't join a team. And I think that was a mistake. I didn't really have anybody telling me to do that. So in the beginning, I was kind of winging it and flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
And make sure that whoever you choose has integrity. And it doesn't matter if they've been in the business 5 years or 50. Just find someone that really does understand contracts, take as many classes as possible, but find a mentor. Probably if you're, you know, fortunate enough to have the money not to have a second job, that's great. But if you do need to continue doing another job, just make sure you have balance, and don't be afraid to ask questions or ask for a sale. A lot of people are undercover agents. Like, they don't talk about their real estate because either they're embarrassed or they don't want to burden people with their talking about sales.
Yeah, it's funny, Teresa, that you say that. At our last team meeting, we had a guest speaker, and she said the same thing. Don't be that secret agent. You know, introduce yourself. Have a name badge. Have a T-shirt or something that says you're in real estate, right? Because that's an opportunity for a conversation, right? Kind of break the ice.
Yeah.
And that'll give you an opportunity to, you know, pass your information. You just never know.
And there are people out there that need help. And truthfully, people go through divorces, people have a loved one pass away, people get married and want to buy a house, or they want to move out from their parents. And they don't know who to go to. And if you don't talk to them, they're gonna go online and find someone on Zillow that they don't know. And, you know, people want to do business with people they know.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably another thing. Make sure, you know, your friends and your family and your coworkers, if you're working another position, you know, don't be afraid to give them 5 business cards. Not one, because they'll probably lose that one, but 5 is good.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. So, when did you become a broker?
So I became a broker in 2020,
Okay,
um,
so just during
during
COVID.
COVID.
Okay,
I actually got my broker's license in California, Nevada, and Montana.
wow, okay.
Yeah.
So you have three licenses.
I do. I had some investors that were looking in Montana
Okay,
to build some big properties, planned communities. So I was flying out there and working a lot.
yeah,
But I decided to refocus all my energy back in California because it's where I live and I couldn't
It's
split
fun.
my time.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. All right. So then during COVID, what was that all? How was that for you?
So COVID was actually really good for me as far as numbers. My sales were actually probably one of the best years I had was during COVID.
Okay,
And that was because everybody that had bought a house, not everybody, but a good chunk of people that had bought houses from me, I started reaching back out because I was kind of bored and just going through my contacts and just, hey, how are you? You know, and truthfully, um, what happened was a lot of people had kids that were now in the house buying age. And so I got those referrals, and those people would have never come to me if it wasn't for COVID. They wanted somebody they trusted, and they wanted somebody that's their family knew. So I ended up having several sales within a couple of families.
amazing.
Yeah.
Good. Wow. So what sets Teresa apart? What is the one unique thing that you have that allows you to do so much business? I think I know the answer because I've seen you in action, but I want you to share that.
I honestly think it's because I really do like people.
Yeah.
And I am an introverted extrovert. That's a term I don't throw around a lot, but when I'm around people, I can shine and I can talk to them, and I really care about their situations. And I have to give credit to my mom because she's the one that taught me that. Uh, you know, my dad has never met a stranger, and I kind of feel the same way. Um, so I just like to help people.
Yeah. And the reason I say this, Teresa, is because, when we went out to have lunch, I saw you in action. You were just conversing, we were talking, but you see someone, and you just started building that conversation uh, with the waitress. Remember
Yes.
that scenario?
Yeah.
And ultimately, we found out that she was in the trenches of getting her real estate license several years back, but never filled. But it was because of Teresa. It filled and it excited her and it motivated her to come in and do the paperwork.
Yeah. And I mean, this industry you can make as much or as little money as you want. It really, that's one thing I love about sales, but real estate, I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
You can make 100,000, you can make 100 million. And it just depends on your motivation and the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
And that one incident, speaking to her, I've learned to be a better listener the older I've become.
Sure.
And to really hear people, because it's one thing to be in a room and people are talking around you and to try and interject yourself. But the more you listen, the more you find out what other people's why is. Why do they need to sell their house?
Right.
I have an example, and this was out of character for me, but I was at a restaurant picking up food, and I heard 2 gentlemen talking, and one was going through a divorce, and I heard him say he needed to sell his house, but they were going back and forth. And so I walked over there and handed him my business card, and I said, you know, fortune favors the bold. Here's my card. I said, I published a book about divorce sales, and I'm a collaborative divorce expert. So I work with other CPAs, lawyers, financial planners, therapists, and get referrals from them. It's a 2-day course to get certified.
Okay.
But I just told him, you know, I've been through divorce. I know it's unpleasant, but there are ways to navigate that with grace and, you know.
Easy. Yeah, I didn't even know there was a curriculum for that. So very interesting. So let's dive into the current events, you know, with NAR, you know, all these lawsuits, settlements. What's your take on all this?
So the first thing I'll say is the media has turned this into a circus. And I would say that's not my circus, not my monkeys, but it is. So I would say that nobody really knows what's going to come out of this because they haven't settled the lawsuits.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of fear-driven conversations and a lot of misinformation out there. I'm a listing agent who will always pay a buyer's agent. I don't think that there are certain people in the industry that can work with a buyer and a seller and be transparent and fair. It's hard sometimes. So there's a lot of really great buyer's agents out there. And I think they bring a lot of value. And I think we as brokers, realtors, even our lenders need to kind of drive home the fact that this buyer's agent, they have a lot of responsibility. And one of the biggest things I say to anyone that's talking about this is, yes, our job is to sell your house or find you a house, but the other job is liability, to keep you out of a courtroom.
That's right.
Because a lot of people, the consumers, are also misinformed about what we do. It goes back to being a secret agent. You know, we do a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't even tell our clients about because we just think it's normal. But I would say start having those conversations after you've resolved the problem. Tell them, okay, this is what happened and this is how we solved it, because then it's already solved for them and their stress doesn't go up. But if they don't know what you've done as a buyer's agent, they just think your job's easy. You've got a check and you showed up to a few inspections and that's it. But it goes way deeper. So I am all for keeping the buyer's agency commission, and I think most realtors are. Like I said, I think there's a lot of misinformation and fear-based driving it, but I'm not afraid of it. I think the professionals that have been in the industry a long time understand the value.
Sure.
And I think we have to come forward with our voice and, you know, the cream's going to rise to the top. So if you're a buyer's agent, don't just get discouraged. Just know what you have to do to earn your commission and make sure you have the paperwork right, because there's going to be new forms through the associations that you have to submit to get paid.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of misinformation about that. So I'm not even going to get into the forms or anything like that. I'm sure there's contract classes and stuff that are offered through Keller Williams. So that's something else I would say, to make sure that people are up on their contracts.
100%. Yeah. You know, we rely not just from the National Association of Realtors, but also the California Association of Realtors and the resources that Keller Williams has, you know, so we try to be on the forefront of all this stuff. And again, you know, business as usual for the time being. Once all this happens, it's no difference than what you saw back in 2008.
Right.
It's no difference than what you saw during COVID time, right? This is just going to be the new norm in how we do real estate.
Yes.
You know, so amazing. So what's the daily for you? What does that look like? How's your day start, Teresa? There you go.
So I will be honest, during COVID, I really just let go of my schedule and kind of did whatever, which is not great. I've learned that I need a schedule. So I'll just go with what I've been doing the past several months. I get up, I go for a walk, usually about an hour. Then I check my emails, then I try to watch something inspirational. Then I look at my calendar to see where I have to be, and then I fill in those blanks. So typically I try to do my marketing at about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then I go out for appointments. And an appointment can just be having coffee with a friend or, meeting a new prospect. It could be a charity thing, but I try to make sure that every day that I'm out. And that goes back to, I guess, what do I do? So now I try to get dressed for the day. I know a lot of people, it's an old saying, dress for the job you want. But it makes me feel better. So instead of going out in my yoga pants and, sweatshirt that I worked out in, now I, try to prepare myself because you never know who you're going to meet or run
That's the
into.
key.
Yeah.
You just never know who you're gonna meet. I love that. Yeah.
And when you're prepared and you're dressed and you feel confident, which I do when I'm dressed nicer, you carry yourself differently.
Yeah, love that. Well, I wanted to kind of piggyback on what you wrote there. So can you tell us a little bit of this segue here?
So I have a saying that I love, and it's in Latin. I'll try to read it, but it's Fortuna est in partes parata, non im requirunt. So it means luck is for the unprepared, and the prepared don't need it. So a lot of times, again, back to people don't see what we do behind the scenes. If you make it look easy, they don't know. But if you are just counting on getting a listing from your cousin or your uncle or just the family stuff, and some people that's good enough for them, 1 listing a year, 2 listings a year. I discourage that usually because of the liability of uneducated, and if you're not really in the real estate industry and you're all the time in there, you're going to miss things. But if you're prepared, don't wait till the last minute to put together your listing presentation. Don't go over the script, meet with a friend, meet with your mentor, meet with, another realtor and go over it and see if they can find holes in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a perfect segue to really, and I always say this saying, real estate is simple but not easy, right? And if you're not putting the effort, you're not going to see the results. And I think you're a true, genuine real estate professional that understands the value of connecting with people. Because like you said earlier, you just never know where your next deal is going to come from, right? You can be at a restaurant, you can be at a class. That conversation leads to another conversation that leads to someone saying, hey, I want to buy, I want to sell, I want to invest, or I have someone that's ready to develop, right? That's the cool thing of what we do. But again, if you're not out there doing it, right,
Yeah.
you're not going to see the results of it.
And I would also say, don't make it about real estate all the time. There's
Yeah.
certain agents and, I'm sure I've been guilty of it myself. We get excited about talking about it and then we don't shut up. And, you know, it's okay to talk about it, but if you listen, get to know people's lives, what their parents are, if their parents are sick, care, and don't be driven by the money, because the money will come. If you're doing the right things, the money will come. It might
Right.
take a little while. And, our industry is not consistent. So when you make those big deals, put aside the money, make sure you have money for your taxes, make sure you have money if, for your insurance and all those things. I don't know what the formula is, but I try to put like 30% away and do all the right things. But, there's a lot of great books out there for people to read about whether that's finance when you're a realtor or whether it's body language. I mean, there's just, thousands of books that you can read. And I know a couple of them that you could reread. And one of them's the one by Gary Keller, which is Shift.
Yes.
And that's probably really important to revisit for seasoned agents right now and for newer agents to read.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of information in that about, changing markets and how to navigate that.
Yeah, I love that. Just before we started the producers, you shared with me on someone that, kind of gave you your motivation was the individual with the bow tie.
Oh,
Can you share that to the audience?
yes. So one of the things that I love to tell people, and this guy just sticks in my mind, is be yourself, be authentic. You know, don't be a carbon copy of someone else. There's a gentleman who is a agent, and he used to be with Keller Williams. I don't know if he still is, but his name is Andrew Brandow. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but the reason he sticks out to me is because every time I saw him, and it was dozens of times over probably 5 years, he was in a suit with a bow tie. It wasn't always the same bow tie, but he always wore a bow tie, and he stuck out to me. And so now when I think about that, it's, if there's something that you are really passionate about, maybe you like cowboy hats, maybe you like bow ties, maybe you like funky socks, stand out, be yourself. Maybe you're into polo, or maybe you're a Dodger fan, whatever it is, you know, make that part of your branding, because people like that. And you will assimilate with those, assimilate with those people, and they'll find an instant connection through something like that.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, Teresa, guess what? It's that time. I told you it was. Well, I wanna thank you, Teresa, for doing this for the audience and for myself. It's great to see you. Much success to you.
Thank you so
You're an amazing individual, and I know you're gonna crush it in 2024. Just keep doing your thing.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching. If anybody has any questions, feel free, real quick, you can put them in the chat.
Yes.
But I think
You do actually have a question in the chat. Could you provide the name and the program for the divorce specialization?
I'd have to look it up, but it's called something collaborate. I'd have to look it up, but I'm happy to pass it on to Simon. I had to go to Sacramento to take it. And I was actually referred it by a financial planner here in the South Bay, but I will look it up and I will find it.
Yeah, and send it to me, and then I can send it to Kim.
Yes.
And then Kim, then we can send it to whoever's asking for that.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, that
guys.
concludes our producer's mindset. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and go out there and crush it. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.